Hey there, everybody. Welcome to the Cover Band Central official podcast number 199 for Tuesday, May 9th, 2023. I'm Steve Witchell in New Orleans.
Hey, I'm Tony B in New Jersey. What's happening?
Just had a bug flying right in front of my face as I was saying that.
Waving to me like, hey, man, what's going on?
All right, we're here. It's live at 7 o'clock Central Time p.m. We do this on Tuesdays sometimes. If you're here live, come on in and join us. Say hello. Tell us where you're from, and we will say hello back. We always like to hear from you guys.
Sometimes we feel like it.
And see where we're reaching around the world. Cliff says, "What's up, guys?"
Cliffy.
We are streaming live on the Cover Band Central Facebook page, in the Cover Band Central Facebook group, and on the Cover Band Central YouTube channel. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. The link is in the description. Click that link. Hit subscribe. Hit the bell so you know when we go live. You can also give stars while you're watching this if you're watching on the Facebook page. Stars are a digital gift that you can give if you like this content or you like this entertainment. It's a way to give back. You can buy them in packs. 1 star equals 1 cent. So buy a big pack and send us your stars. We do appreciate that.
You might be scarred watching the show, but
right.
Always send stars.
So Cliff, who said what's up, is in Edmonton, Kentucky. Silas says hello. Nice, cool picture of Eddie Van Halen there.
Very cool.
Daniel's here. Cynthia's in Texas. Oh, how do you say that name? In Acapulco.
Zeno,
you think? Xhino.
or Zino.
Zino, I want to say. Silas is also in Kentucky. Brian's in Tucson, Arizona. Lee in Cornwall, United Kingdom. Fred's in Louisiana. That's where I am.
Close by.
Yeah, Ian in South Australia, Adelaide.
Not close by to me.
Jamie's in Walnut. I don't know what that means. Walnut tree?
Next to beach or oak?
Probably. Maple. Nancy's in Philadelphia. Dee Dee in Seattle, over on the other side of the country.
All right.
Tonda in North Carolina. Lots of people coming in. We really appreciate you guys here live, watching along and chiming in, asking questions, leaving comments on our topics.
Yeah.
Port Orange, Florida, near Daytona is where Gloria is. George is in Chicago watching on YouTube. Thanks, George.
Georgie.
Like I said, we are on YouTube too. Make sure you subscribe to that channel. Lots of goodies in there. Ginger's in Texas. Lots of people in here tonight. Charles in Chicago. Again, thank you one and all for coming in here live and watching us and being part of the Cover Band Central community. Episode 199, Tony. We're one away.
On the brink, Steve.
We're on the brink. We're going to do 200.
Precipice. Greatness.
I'm saying to you now and announcing to the audience, we will do episode 200 in 2 weeks on Tuesday. So that will be the 23rd of May. So just before Memorial Day weekend, we will do our 200th episode, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit and try to get some ideas going for how to celebrate this. And we want to include you guys too on this since you're a part of this show. Brian asked, do we allow live performances here? Not really on the podcast itself, Brian, but definitely in the Cover Band Central group. You can post your performances. You can do a live stream there if you like. So if you're not part of the group, make sure you join that on Facebook. Daniel, who's our favorite guitarist? Do you have a favorite guitarist, Tony?
Favorite guitarist. I probably have a favorite guitarist in each genre of music. But like all-time favorite guitar player? That's tough, man. But I'd probably have to say Eddie.
Yeah, Eddie's one. It's hard for me to pick a favorite one, but I like guitar players that play melodically. Eddie's definitely one. Even though he was a shredder, he still had a melodic way of approaching.
He had great ideas, like he was a shredder, but he had really good rhythmic and, sonic ideas. The way he got the sounds out of his instrument and the way he then used them, melodically. He's a very melodic player.
Yeah, but so some of my Eddie's one, Neil Schon and David Gilmour are my top three, just because of how melodic they play, how tasty they are with their solos, and great rhythm players as well. Favorite Ozzy song? Silas asked. Mine is Mr. Crowley. That I know. Mr. Crowley has two, speaking of solos, has two excellent solos from Randy Rhoads, and that's why it's my favorite song. The solos in that are genius from Randy Rhoads. Got a favorite Ozzy song?
Maybe Over the Mountain live.
Okay, so you can include a live song.
Or a studio version, either way.
Over the Mountain's great. Tommy Aldridge.
Yep. Even Crazy Train live with Rudy Sarzo and Tommy Aldridge, like that era of band, was also top notch.
And that was Brad Gillis on guitar.
Yes.
In that time period.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. Cool questions. I like those.
Yeah.
Again, keep them coming and keep letting us know where you're from, and we'll keep you guys in the conversation. So, 2 weeks off again, and we're going to kind of, I think, Tony, do that like every 2 weeks going forward, especially through the summer. So, hence 200 in 2 weeks on May 23rd.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I got uprising from the crew over here. They want to know what are they going to do for the whole summer now.
Well, they'll be here. They can go back and listen to the
he's happy to have off, but Teddy wants to work more, so he's
all right. We'll hook him up.
We'll figure it out.
We'll hook him up. Yes and No is from Georgia. It's an interesting name. Is that the name of your band, or is that your name?
Yes and No.
That could get confusing.
No and yes.
Vonda's here. Vonda comes back all the time. Vonda's in Michigan.
Vonda's happening.
Like to see you there. So yeah, 2 weeks off. I did my gigs, and this past weekend was great. Again, for people who don't know, I play on Bourbon Street in New Orleans in 2 different bands on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I play in the afternoon with a band called Cornerstone. I forgot what the name was. Cornerstone at Bourbon Bandstand 2 to 6:15, and then at night with a band called Rockbox at Fat Cats right across the street from 7 to 1:30. And long days. This week I took Sunday off though, so I only worked Friday and Saturday. I did because my brother was in town. I have a younger brother. He's not a musician, but he is my brother, and he came into town to go to Jazz Fest. And he came in Thursday, so we went out for dinner Thursday, and then 2 of his friends, who are my friends as well, flew in on Friday morning. They came over to my place, hung out for a while, then went to their hotel, and then came to see my day band play, so which my brother hasn't seen, and none of those guys have seen me play in the day band. So that was cool. It's nice to have people that there in the audience, and then they came Saturday night after Jazz Fest to see Rockbox for a bit as well.
For the night band.
Yeah, and then I took Sunday off to go to Jazz Fest with them. So that was cool. I haven't been to a concert in a long time. Definitely not Jazz Fest. And Jazz Fest, for those who don't know, here in New Orleans is an annual event that started out as just jazz music, New Orleans traditional kind of music, and has grown into a big festival with top bands, headline artists throughout. There's 2 weekends. They do Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday the next week. And, always, top bands,
So who'd you get to see on Sunday?
Sunday I saw Mumford & Sons. They were one of the kind of headliners. And I know a few of their songs. I'm sort of familiar with them. And I'm okay with that, going to see a band that I don't know a lot of their material. Because you can hear songs live that you never heard before, and you think that's a great song, and you go check them out. Mumford & Sons, Herbie Hancock, and Melissa Etheridge. Herbie Hancock played after Mumford & Sons. Mumford & Sons, by the way, was great. A lot of energy, a lot of mellow songs, though. A lot of very mellow songs. But they have some upbeat stuff. The singer plays He plays drums too in the band, but he's out front most of the time. And it's interesting. He has a kick drum by his mic stand and a pedal, and he'll be playing guitar and singing and hitting the kick, like quarter notes on the kick,
Sure.
throughout an entire song. So that's pretty neat. And then he'll go back and play drums for a few songs, and then they have this other guy who jumps up on drums.
Cool.
Bass player plays electric bass and stand-up bass, both very well. They have a banjo player, more like a folky kind of
sure.
rock band. But they were real good. And Herbie Hancock, it was so crowded. It was in one of the tents, and it was jam packed in the tent. There was no way of getting in there, but you could still kind of from the outside, you can kind of see the big TV screens and hear it. Obviously, they have speakers right outside, and I couldn't even get to a point where I could see, like I could barely see the TV screen. I had to like peek under somebody, and like, so a lot of people, and listened for a while, and I guess very proficient in their jazziness of that, but the music to me is just not my cup of tea. Like, I'll listen to it at home, maybe if I'm, as background music, but at like a concert, it was like, I don't know. It just wasn't. There's so many, and I don't mean to offend anybody that plays jazz or likes jazz, but there's so many wrong notes in jazz. It just sounds like they're playing whatever notes they want to play.
Conversational, man. Come on.
I guess it is, and maybe I'm ignorant for not understanding all those dissonant notes and why they're there, but that's what it sounds like to me. It's just a lot of dissonance, but I mean, still incredibly talented. Obviously, everybody in the band. So we watched a few songs for that, and then walked over to see Melissa, and she was fantastic, man. That woman could still blow. She could still sing.
Yeah, she was cranking, huh?
Really good. She's got a lot of hits. You don't realize how many hits she's had.
Yeah.
And great band with her, and ended with Like the Way I Do, which is one of her early hits from her first album. And I think she always ends with that. It's a very jammy kind of song, and it's a great live song. So that was fun. Tons of energy in that. She was in a tent as well, but I was able to kind of get in it a little bit. So the sound in the room was great. The energy was just off the charts. People were loving it. So I enjoyed that. Beautiful day too here in New Orleans. So it was a good time.
Nice.
Yeah. George said there are no wrong notes in jazz. It's artistry.
Yes, indeed it is.
Right. Deborah said improv rocks. That's funny. Yes and no said anyone can be a jazz prodigy if they can play their instrument wrong enough. Yeah, Zeno, you hear some about Latin music, regional music. I didn't, because I was only there for the one day, and we were only there for about 4 or 5 hours, so I didn't get to really hear a lot of the artists that are there, unfortunately. But it's what happens when you work on the weekend and you're playing music.
Yeah, it was 2 weekends full of artists, right? So there's a lot of people playing.
Oh yeah, tons. I mean, over 100 at least.
Yeah. And what, they have like a main stage and side stages? Or
they have a couple main stages. Yeah, they have 2 or 3 like big stages. I mean, I guess there's one that's the biggest stage, and then they have a couple other outdoor stages that are big as well. And then they have these tents with big stages on them, but fewer people, obviously, for capacity. And then they have little side stages, all over the place for local bands and stuff. So it's a big deal music festival.
Yeah.
Here. And then they have food and drinks and all that. So it's a good time. I know a lot of people come to here for Jazz Fest from around the world. Will travel here just for Jazz Fest. It's kind of like a Coachella or Lollapalooza or whatever. It's something.
And why do you notice an uptick in the crowd?
George loves it. He said it's a blast. As far as being on Bourbon Street, no.
Yeah, like you didn't have an influx of people.
No, if anything, it was fewer people. Because I think even though people are coming here for Jazz Fest, it's a long day if they go early. and by the time they get out and get the shuttle back to the hotel, they're wiped out, and they might, go to dinner and not come out and see another band, after seeing bands all day. However,
if you're a music fan, of course you're going to want to see more music.
Well, some people do, but not the majority. But on Saturday night, it was weird. Saturday night, we start at 7, we break at 10, come back at 10:30, go to 10:30, 1:30. And for that first 3 hours before break, it was pretty dead. Then we came back, also pretty dead, and we had to kind of work to build up the room. It wasn't until like 11:30, 12 o'clock really started getting a lot of people in there. And it was just increasing as it was getting later. And by the time we were done, it was jam packed. It was weird. It was, and the band was like on fire. We did some really cool songs, like heavy songs at the end of the night. A lot of energy. I was feeling it. I was really getting into it, and the crowd was responding. And it was one of my favorite nights playing with Rockbox. Was that night? Yeah. Yeah, it was good time. I'm very comfortable in the band now. I just put new strings on my bass, so the bass sounded really good. And the energy was really off the charts. It was really fun. So yeah, that was my most recent. How about you? What do you got?
Yeah, so recap real quick. I had 2 gigs since last podcast, and they both went well. But the interesting thing was we had talked about last podcast how we had set up band and shook out the PA and tweaked everything and EQ'd it and got everything exactly where it had to be, and the memory was working and everyone was excited. And then 5 days later we get to that first gig and turn the board on and everything's erased and it's back to ground zero.
Oh no.
And so scrambled up for like 25 minutes to get sound back up and running again, played that gig, tweaked it as we went, got better as the night went on, and finally got the sound together again, saved that scene, and then went back and played this past weekend, and again, the board is erased clean.
What happened?
Something wrong with the board. So we're going to abandon ship on this QSC digital mayhem board and go back to like a Mackie Pro FX16 or some kind of live board that's quickly. See, the thing with that QSC board is it's a great board, but in order to manipulate it, you have to go in, go to the menu, scroll through, find the thing, go down, then you can adjust like if you need more monitor. As opposed to like my board, or an analog digital hybrid board, you just walk up to it and either push the fader up or just turn the dial. If you need more monitor, I just turn you up.
Right.
So it's instantaneous. So that's going to be the next step now. We got to upgrade the board and then start all over again, but at least this time there's no memory like to be, lost. You take a picture of the board if something gets moved in the case,
Right.
But we did get it sounding good. It's just the challenge is it doesn't save anything, and the battery's good and the software's updated and some kind of glitch, and there's just internal. I think the digital headroom in it's not as great because you can't get like good monitor volume out of it without feedback. And like my board, you can plug in and I could probably get twice, if not 2/3 more volume than they're already getting.
Wow, what a drag! Because you guys put a lot of work into that.
Yeah, 8 hours we spent doing it. So,
wow.
Yeah, but other than that, and then so we got to figure that out, and then my guitar player is going to Belgium for 6 weeks to go visit family on a vacation too. So I'll have the next 6 weeks off of gigs, and then I'm into summer festivals where I think we have 10 between now and September. So
that's a long vacation, man. 6 weeks.
Yeah. Well, he's going to Belgium, so it's not
right.
Not like going to the beach.
Leo's in Minnesota. What's up, Leo? Always nice to have Leo here. What kind of bass do I play? I have several. My main one that I'm using now is an Ibanez. It's a 5-string, and the reason I'm using it is because it's light, and because I'm on stage for about 10 hours every weekend, every day of the weekend. A heavy bass starts to hurt my neck and my back, so that's the one. But I have a Spectre, Fender, so that answers your question, Daniel.
And do you gig with the same bass consistently? Do you always use that?
Yeah, the Ibanez is the one I've been using. Nice and light. It sounds good.
Easy on the back.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good bass. My first bass was an Ibanez too. My first ever bass, a Roadster 2.
Do you still have it?
I don't. I really wish I did. I'm sure it exists somewhere.
Ooh.
And I kind of know how I could probably track it down if I really wanted to.
But you're just not that motivated to go.
Not that motivated to do it, but
okay.
But maybe someday. Maybe someday somebody will just contact me like, hey, guess what? I have your bass.
Hey, dude, I opened up this bass to change the pickup in it. It said Steve Wishler from Cover Band Central. And this was back like 35 years ago when Cover Band Central was just a remote thought. Do you want it back? Nah, you can just keep it. It's all good.
No, I'll take it back.
Thanks for letting me know.
40 years I bought it. 40 years ago I bought that bass.
40 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Well, someone's hopefully playing it somewhere, Steve, enjoying it, just as you did.
It was a great bass. My teacher used to say that all the time, my private teacher, instructor. I love this bass. He would always say, I love this bass.
Yeah, well, sometimes they have magic in them, Steve, like drums, certain ones sound a certain way, and cymbals are the same way, too.
Yeah.
All
right, so let's take a little break for the audio podcast, and we'll talk about some other stuff. Before we get to the topic, let's throw around this idea. Next episode is number 200.
200.
What do we want to do? What do we want to do to celebrate this? Let's talk about it. And if anybody out there has some suggestions, let us know what would be a good way to celebrate episode number 200 of this podcast.
An hour of live bands with a minute clip each, and circus animals and jugglers and fire-breathing guys and stuff like that. We gotta go big, Steve.
Yeah. Well, if we can't secure all of that,
then
we'll do shots of tequila, like George said.
Do shots of tequila, right? Because it was Cinco de Mayo last week, so
it was.
And then we could just talk about stuff. Maybe we could have some special guests on, Steve.
I was thinking guests.
Guests or future presidents.
I was thinking we could get some guests in. Beers, said Mike. Mike was in New Orleans a couple weeks ago. He went to Frenchman Street, but didn't spend much time on bourbon, and I don't blame you, Mike. Have we got a Patreon page? Asked Deborah. No. Why does she ask? Why do you ask, Deborah? So yeah, guests would be a good idea, and I could reach out to a few and see if they want to come in. Yeah, I was thinking of this too, like a retrospective. Leo said some clips from episode 1.
Yeah, maybe.
Which we can do, and those are only audio. Yeah, those are only audio clips. So I was thinking of doing that, maybe a retrospective, kind of go through some of the earlier episodes and reminisce on what we were talking about back then.
Okay, that sounds like a plan.
So that's not bad.
That.
Mike said live stream from the streets. What streets?
Like the streets, like take it out to the street. Like you used to do on David Letterman when they would say, go out to the street now, and Steve's going to go talk to people, and you're out on the street like, hey, what's going on?
Deborah said, let's celebrate by launching a Patreon page. So that's not a bad idea.
There you go. That's a good idea.
I like that idea. I'm gonna jot that down as a possibility. So, or we could do all of that. We could do kind of guests and have a little retrospective and launch a Patreon page. So those aren't bad ideas.
And then depending how many guests we have, we got to try to achieve 200 shots of tequila episode.
Yeah. Good luck.
You need at least 20 people on there to get through the episode.
20 people and we'll all do 10 shots?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
We'd make it at least an hour doing that. That's all we got. That's all that matters. We can throw up after that and go to sleep. Just got to make a good show, Steve. It's show business.
Yeah, what happens after that hour, though?
I say you throw up and go to sleep. You're done. But at least you gave a good show.
Jason USA of Chipson as a guest. I don't know Jason. I know Chipson. But that's not a bad idea. But not for episode 200, but we could definitely have him on as a guest. So yes and no if you know Jason. If you are Jason, whatever, let me know. You could send here. I got to put the email up. You could send
contact
Steve at coverbandcentral.com is how you can reach me. Give me some info there. Yes and no.
You can reach me too. Just tell Steve to give me the message.
Yeah. Tony doesn't reveal his contact information.
Secretly piggybacking onto Steve's contact info.
but either way, it's a big milestone for us. 200. It's
Yeah,
like
200. I mean, woo, 200 hours of wisdom. That's a lot.
it did start as well. It started as a podcast, and we made it the Wisdom Hour, and now it's just back to the podcast.
Yes, correct.
But it's still the Wisdom Hour. Who are we kidding?
But we can go back and find gems of wisdom, I'm sure, throughout
Sure.
the years. We can go back to early days. We can reminisce a little bit, Steve. It's good to have some retrospective, you know?
Right.
We'll go back and reminisce a little bit. Say, "Hey, remember that? And talked about this. And remember when that was going on, 5 years ago, or however long it's been?
Yes. So I'll have to do some work to put that together between now and 2 weeks from today.
Do you remember early on? I forget the person's name, but we were engaged. We helped somebody in like the early episodes, like sub 10, like single digit episodes. And you forwarded me this email, and you were like, "This guy wrote us back this email." I remember you sent it to me, and I started reading it, and then it was like pretty long, and I had been reading it for like a good minute and a half, and then I started scrolling through, and it was like pages upon pages upon
Right.
pages, and I'm like, "Oh, I can't read this now." But then I went back and read it, and it was like a really nice email, like really well thought out and well written, but it was very, very long, and history of the band, and I forget the person's name.
I remember what you're talking about. I don't
You know
remember the
what I'm talking
name.
Yeah,
I don't remember the name either, but maybe if I go back and listen, I can figure that out too.
Yeah, but
Or
I remember that being the first thing that struck me was like, wow, we're doing this podcast, and someone took obviously like 15 minutes to write this letter because it took like a half an hour to read it, and we were like, whoa.
Yeah, they took more than 15 minutes.
Yeah.
They probably took several hours to to write that email.
Yeah, it was crafted up from like infancy through like, good history report there.
Daniel wants to know, what drumsticks do you play?
Drumsticks do I play? I've played many over the years. Right now, I'm shuffling between. I have a balance of some old Zildjian Vinnie Colaiuta sticks that I'm still using, and I have some Vader 5A keg barrel tip that I've recently used. A little bit lighter for some of the indoor venues, so I'm not crushing everybody with volume. But typically Vic Firth or Zildjian or Vader, depending.
All right, there you go. Daniel's putting together a whole band based on what we use. He's got my bass now. He's got your sticks.
He's got my sticks.
All right, so should we get to the topic, you think? So we got
time. Yeah, sure.
We got good ideas for 200. And
I'm sure they'll evolve between now and then as well. But at least we have a groundwork to start from.
Yeah. So I'm sure we've talked about this, dude, like probably many times.
I'm sure.
But I made the topic managing the band, and I want to talk about people who manage the band who are in the band. Some bands do have somebody outside of the band doing the quote unquote managing, which would be booking and whatever.
Corralling,
yeah.
Yes.
But I think most cover bands have, work from within. They have somebody who kind of runs the show in the band. And I know that there's bands out there that don't. And that's cause for concern, because you need somebody in charge. Somebody needs to make decisions, final decisions about things in order to progress, in order to move forward, in order to grow and be successful. You really need somebody to make firm decisions. That's why on sports teams you have a manager, you have a coach, you have somebody who is deciding something with nobody else being able to argue with them.
What do you do if it's a democracy, though? What if there's no
Hi, Olivia. Sorry.
appointed leader? Right?
Well, that's a good question.
And everyone says we're going to vote on this, or, hey, Steve, I don't think you should play that during this song, that thing, that fill, or your bass doesn't sound good. And you're like, I think it's fine. And then the four of the people in the band say, we agree with number one's comment, Steve, and you need to fix that. So now if it's a democracy, there's no leader. It's a bunch of people talking to one person, and or picking songs like, oh, I don't want to do that song, but everyone else says no, we're doing it. So it's a flip side to what you're saying. You need a leader, but what if there isn't a leader? What are some of the challenges that might come with that sort of, situation where no one's saying this is what we're doing and whether you like it or not?
Yeah, I mean, those are two different topics. Like somebody's playing something in the band that somebody doesn't like,
No, I
and
just
that is not necessarily like a management decision. That's just kind of a band sort of execution of a
no, but
song
what if I'm the
decision.
leader of the band and you're like, but I like playing that, and the other guy's like, I like that too, and I say, you know what? It's not in the original version. You shouldn't be playing that. Don't play it anymore. I'm the leader of the band. I'm telling you not to do that.
Yeah, that's poor leadership, I think, in my opinion. That is. Uh,
I'm just bringing up scenarios. That's all.
unless everybody in the band cites a reason without insulting the person, say like, here's why you should do this or you shouldn't do this.
And what about a song? Like, Ace, I really want to do this song, and two other people are like, I don't know.
That's yeah, that's where it comes to somebody needs to make an executive decision because not everybody will always agree. In fact, most of the time, most people, not everybody will agree. So you need somebody to make a decision, and it's final. The bands that I've been in that have that leader are always better. It's a better situation, whether I agree with the manager, the person who's managing, or not. I think it's better because at least a decision is being made, and there's not everybody's not wishy-washy about something. And all decisions aren't going to be right, but you need to try things and fail in order to know what does work. That's just part of the deal. Yeah, and like Marianne said, she's the leader by default, manager by default because nobody else does it, and that's what happens a lot too in situations like, all right, nobody's taking over, I'm going to take over. So there is no democracy really. There's no vote. It's just
Well, that's different. If
yeah,
no one's doing anything and I'm going to take over and I'm going to book all the gigs and I'm going to put together the set list and I'm going to be the musical director and I'm going to pick the songs, then yeah, if that's you're in charge, and the band's doing whatever you're directing them to do, basically, right? But like I said, it's a different situation sometimes. I think when you have a band where it's a democracy, where people can vote on it or say like, hey, I think there are two different scenarios, right? One is like you said, if you have a manager, that manager is basically telling you what to do. You're playing these gigs. Here's the places we're playing. This is the pay we're getting. This is what we're booked for, right?
right.
But I think there's also a lot of bands out there where they might break up the different roles, right? Like someone might be the booking guy for the band, and someone might be the guy who makes the set list, and someone might be the guy who is, the musical director, so to speak, right? Picking the songs.
Right. And that's good. And that's probably the best way to go is to delegate tasks to people who are good at it. Are you good at social media? All right, you're doing our Facebook page. Are you good at talking to people? Okay, you're doing our booking. But somebody still needs to be in charge to do that delegating, in my opinion. Because I spent a lot of time in my non-musical work life, as a manager. I managed businesses. I worked for a company, and I had somebody above me, but I was a manager where I had to do that. I had to delegate tasks. I had to make schedules. I had to do payroll. I had to, discipline. I had to hire. I had to fire. I had to do, everything that a manager does. And I did that for a long time. And there's no way the business could have been run without that, without somebody there
Sure.
doing that. So the same could be said for a band too, even though it's fewer people. It still needs direction. It still needs somebody to make a decision. And I'll give you examples of the two bands I work with. There really is in Cornerstone. There really is no manager. There's a band leader, who represents the band to the company. And if the company has an issue, they talk to him. If he has an issue, whatever, he goes to them. But other than that, he's not really managing the band. And really nobody is. So as a result, there's no progress. There's status quo. And that, I don't think that's the best way to go. I think there needs to be somebody in charge saying, okay, what can we do now? What song can we do now? How can we improve? What can we do to take what we're doing already and make this better? Or what needs to change? What's not working? Somebody needs to be calling those shots, and nobody is. And now on Bourbon Street, we can get away with it because what are they going to do? They're going to fire us? No. Maybe eventually for some other reason, but not that reason.
Because technically, you're getting the job done. You're putting people in the room. They're selling drinks, and you guys are being successful.
Yeah.
So from that standpoint, the club is happy.
Right.
From a musical standpoint, the growth of the band is stifled by not having a manager.
Right. Very well summed up, Tony. And Kelly said there has to be one person in charge. Songs usually have to be centered around the vocalist or frontman to be successful. A democracy in this business usually up a recipe to fail. My opinion, but it seems throughout my experience this is the result, and I agree. Yeah. I mean, because the democracy thing, what if it's 50-50? You know, then what do you do?
Yeah, I don't know. You have to figure something out. But I just know in the past, like if we had to buy gear, right? Like, hey, the PA, we have to buy new mains, right? This one main is crapping out, or they're only 12s, and we're playing bigger rooms now, so we got to buy 15-inch mains. So we're going to sell these mains, and we're going to take gig money and buy the next one, right? Well, two people in the band are like, nah, I don't think we need new mains. I'm not down for that. I don't want to pitch in money. And there's 5 people in the band. The other 3 people say, no, we're in favor of getting it, and we are taking the next gig's money, and we're going to buy speakers because we need them, right? So I think if it's a 50-50, at that point, it becomes factually what is, to you said, like, what's the detriment to the band at that point, right? Like, are you doing it for the benefit of the band, which everyone should be, right? The decisions that are made should be for the benefit of the entire team as a whole. And I think sometimes in a band, you have to look at and say, even though you might not agree with something, or think it's not necessary, maybe you have to entertain the point why the other people in the band think it might be necessary, or right, and maybe you didn't look at it that way. That's the only advantage I see of a democracy is you're not being told specifically like, hey, we have to do all these things. But I guess in the case of a leader, they would say, hey, we need to get this gear. Let's talk about how to pay for it. You know, like that sort of thing. Because no one person should have to buy that. Like,
oh,
hey,
sure, no,
hey, Steve, we need new mains, and no one else is down to do it. So you're the only one that wants them, so you go buy them.
Right, and that's happened before too, like with buying equipment. And it's like, all right, we'll all pitch in, but then somebody is keeping the gear. You know, somebody has it at their house or whatever.
Right.
And that happened with me in Jersey in Mad Rabbit. We all pitched in for a PA, but then it stayed at the singer's house, and I never got to use it for myself. Mark says, I'm the lead singer. I do all the booking, making set lists, negotiating price, all the social media, collecting the money, and paying everyone. But he says we all decide on which songs we play, and it seems to work for them. So it really is a case-by-case basis.
Yeah.
You know, you do, as long as it's working and you're not having some sort of conflict in there. So, you know, in that democracy example, you know, you have the 5 people, you have 3 people that say we need this new system. 2 people don't agree. The 3 majority rules, and they get the new system. Do those 2 people hold a grudge? Are they bitter, or are they accepting it? And that's the agreement that has to be made if there's going to be that kind of democracy, because then you're going to have dissension in the band if they're not happy about it.
Sure. But then what happens if those 2 people are unhappy about it and just say, it is not a democracy and we're not down for that and we're not contributing to that and we don't support that, but it's a necessity. So then I guess it comes back to, like you said, the leader saying, this is what's needed, this is what we're doing, you have to get on board with it.
Right. Yes. So as a person who did manage businesses, one of the things that I always stuck to was I made sure I led by example. I would never tell somebody to do something that I didn't or wouldn't do myself. And if they didn't know how to do it, I would teach them how to do it. But I always felt like leading by example was absolutely necessary to get the respect of the people that you're managing.
Sure.
And cooperation. One of my pet peeves about Rockbox is there's one person that manages the show, not really managing the band. He's running the show, calling songs, takes several breaks, because somebody else in the band can play guitar, and and I've asked, many times, like, I would just like one break during that period of time too, because I'm playing already during the day, at night, after an hour and a half, I could use a break for a song.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time I don't get it. So, that's poor management to me. And there's other factors about that, like Rockbox doesn't really have, because I'm subbing really for the guy who's the band leader. Now they have like, one person does this, another person does this. So they have, things that are delegated, and it seems to be running well. My opinion about that band is that there's so much more potential than those guys are taking advantage of. And if I was the manager, if I was the leader, I would say, okay, we're doing these things because of the potential here for advancement of this band, and for it could be very lucrative for everybody. I have great ideas, and I have an audience of almost 700,000 people now on Cover Band Central. It's a no-brainer to me. It's a great band. They have a show. They basically do the same show all the time, and I'm part of it now, or I have been for the last 6 months. And there's just nobody like stepping up to do that. They just keep it status quo, which works, but it's not gonna, it's not gonna get better from here. It's just gonna be like, okay, this is what we do. So for reasons like that, I think it's important to have a manager who has some vision too, has aspirations. Like,
how about communication though amongst the band? Like, do you guys talk about stuff like that to say like, here's the direction we want to go in, or what do you guys think about this? Or since there's nobody leading to say, per se, or is it just, like you said, show up, play the gig, and I'll see you tomorrow, and show up, play the gig, and I'll see you tomorrow, and then show up, play the gig, and I'll see you next week?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, for these two bands, because we don't rehearse,
right?
And there's no communication. There's no like thread in text or on email or anything. There's nobody managing social media, and which is ridiculous to me. All the opportunity. If you see some of the young bands out there that that grew up where the internet was a thing already, they're killing it. They're killing it on YouTube. They're killing it on social media, on TikTok, on Facebook, on Twitter, on everything, Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're taking advantage of the opportunity that's right here in front of them, and people that are older are just not doing it, and it's ridiculous that they're not doing it, to me, because there's a whole audience out there, especially for a band like Rockbox that plays in New Orleans on Bourbon Street. Everybody knows about Bourbon Street,
right,
all over the world, and there's. I would estimate, Rockbox has been around for a long time. I would estimate that there have been hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions of people, that have seen that band over the course of the last 20 years. In different incarnations, that band has been, personnel has changed, but the name, everybody knows the name. So why not reach those millions of people around the world that know who the band are, and take advantage of the internet?
Well, to your point too,
I don't get it.
It's a commitment, right? Like if you're going to shoot video or gather video or post things all the time, or constantly advertise, and like you do, with the page, it's a full-time thing. It's not like something you can do once in a while. You have to get in a routine and a habit of doing it, and have some rhythm, right? Because if you're not consistent with the posting all the time, right? You're not consistent with what's out there, then the message, I think, gets lost by the people that are doing that, people that are inundating the media masses, right? And getting their stuff out there. But, it becomes a complacency thing, right? Where it's comfortable, it's easy, it's the same tunes, and you fall into like that trap where it's just an easy gig and there's plenty of people, and, you don't really have to do anything, right? To promote it, for it to be successful.
Nothing.
But
Nothing.
to your point, it's at half throttle,
Yeah, and things do change around here quite often. Rockbox is lucky that band's been in Fat Cats now for 8 or 9 years, somewhere around there, in that Friday, Saturday, Sunday slot. But things do change with no warning. You know, anytime things have changed here, for me, a club closing, a job, no longer there, a manager changing, no warning, just happens. Boom. So yeah, you want to have a backup plan or something to just carry the name of the band on, or carry the, want to call it a legacy.
Yeah,
but
in the event of that, you're right, Steve. Like they we on a Sunday and say, "Hey, great gig, but we won't have you back anymore. Today's your last gig. Thanks."
Yep. Yeah. That's how it goes. Yeah.
Right. And you're out of a gig looking for a new gig.
Yeah.
And at least if you're out and on social media and advertising, you're in the mix of things, and you can just post on that. Hey, available. We're available now for looking for a new home, new steady gig.
Yeah, people come all the time. Like, do you guys play? Will you travel? Will you come play my party? Will you come play my son's graduation?
Yeah,
it happens all the time. And that band has done that. I haven't done it with them, but they have done that. And you could command top dollar for things like that.
Sure.
Getting on a plane and having to do a private event. So, and there's somebody that takes care of that in the band too. When anybody asks, he has a card, he gives them the card. I don't know if he does any sort of follow-up on that. Probably should, but yeah.
Well, that's another great topic right there is having that stuff ready. Not like, hey man, you guys are great, and my son's birthday party's coming up, or my wife's birthday, and I want to hire you guys. You have a card? Oh yeah, hang on a minute. Let me find that guy. Hey Steve, do you have a card? Can you talk to Joe? Does Joe have one? I think he's got one in the car. Hang on, I'll be right back to you. And it might take you like 5 minutes to find a card. The guy may or may not wait around, depending on how excited he is to have the band play.
Yeah, that's something you need to be organized. So,
got to be on it right there to say, yeah, absolutely. Here's a card. Everyone should have a card. When we always used to all have cards on us. Any one of us, the guy could walk up and say, hey, you guys are great. Do you have a card? Yep, here you go.
Yeah. And that's, to me, that comes along with managing the band. Being organized, being proactive, motivating, being able to delegate, problem solve. When I was a manager of businesses, I spent most of my time, or at least half of my time, every single day, solving a problem. I always felt like that's my job. I'm here to solve a problem. There's a customer that's unhappy. A shipment didn't arrive in time. An employee is sick. Whatever. It's something every day. So as a manager, you need to problem solve. All right, like so-and-so doesn't have a cable. What do we do? His cable's not working. What do we do? Problem solve. And I mean, I know I wrote it in the description. I don't know if I can see the description now.
His cable doesn't work. Oh, man, I guess you got to hang out.
But
it's working again.
But having a vision, being organized, being motivated, those are the top three for me. Knowing what you want to do, you have to be organized about it. Mm-hmm. You have to keep notes, keep a journal, whatever, however you organize things, but you have to do it. And like you said, with the cards, if that's something you want to do, get other gigs, have business cards, have them at the ready, know where they are. When somebody asks, you want a card? Right here. Boom. Done.
Yeah. Yep.
I have Cover Band Central cards in my gig bag. I know where they are. And I have a backpack that I use like for my stuff. And I have, the sections in a backpack, and I know where everything is in that backpack. I assign sections, things. Yeah, things go in certain sections, and they always go there. And that's just the way I am with organizing everything. I know where things go, so if I need it, I know where it is. That's why I organize.
Yeah, well, being organized is definitely important. It helps you keep all your stuff together, and like you said, it's all in one place. And it's an easier way to track progress, right? If you're disorganized, you never know where the bar is, right, or what your progress is because you're not keeping track of anything.
Right. You're welcome, Leo. He said thanks for all you do. Oops. Marianne said not only to have a card to give them, but take their details so you can follow up. I said that before, but you definitely want to follow up. And Mark has business cards in his wallet and gig bag. So in a couple different locations, yeah, that's a good thing to do too. But I mean, I just, I want to appeal to the people who do manage bands but don't really put a lot of thought into it. And think about what you're doing and the potential that's there if you're really properly managing your band.
Yeah, and there's so many things to have to manage aside from all the things you just spoke about, right? You have to manage the personalities of the individual people in the band, right?
Schedules.
Schedules. You have
Yeah.
to manage an agenda or a rehearsal schedule of some sort. If you are, have a plan and you're moving forward and you're learning songs, right? You have to make a list of songs that you want to do and then put them in the order that's easiest to hardest, right? So you have some extra time to work on the more difficult ones, right? To be ready to play them.
Right.
Organize all that. Like you said, scheduling, right? You're trying to schedule 4 or 5, 6 different people, to get together to do things. Gigs, same thing. Scheduling people's time around gigs, rehearsals, venues, right? Like frequency of playing venues, new venues. What venues do you want to play? What venues are the places that you don't want to play, or that you know that you're not going to go over there? What places have built-in crowds? Like there's a whole nother demographic on the club scene itself, right? Like the locations you're going to play, what places have built-in crowds, what places do you have to bring people to, so there's a lot of things to think about. Day gigs, night gigs, pay, all those things. Like talk about sound. Has the band sound out front? Like who's doing the sound,
Mm-hmm.
the equipment for the sound, right? Because you get the best, most talented band and you guys are killing it and know every song, and your sound sounds like garbage out front. Band's not going to sound good, man.
Right. And I think some people are reluctant to take that position because not everybody likes the boss, and some people don't want to be disliked because they said something that was unpopular. But the good manager has a thick skin and doesn't let that bother them, and knows with confidence that what they're doing is for the greater good of the band.
And also is able to present it in a non-threatening, positive way that
Yes.
can bolster the result you're looking for, and not leading by fear or leading by mismanagement, or like you said, being a poor leader and saying, well, you're doing that just because I'm the boss, That's
Right.
That's no way to lead, right? So you have to lead by example, like you said, gain respect of everyone, but show people respect too. And like you said, it's
Yes.
for the greater common good of the band. It's not my opinion or what I specifically want to do,
Right.
but I'm bringing it to the band for, as a topic for discussion, because no one else is, right? If you're not the leader, you can bring things up and say, no one else is talking about this or doing anything about it. We need to address it.
Yeah, and that's if you have that opportunity. If you have rehearsals, or you have band meetings, or you have a text thread that you keep, or some sort of way of communicating with each other on a regular basis, and that's really key too, to have that. And somebody needs to make that decision and put it together. Like, all right, we want to talk about band issues. Here's where we do. We go to Slack and we have a thing here, or whatever. You just pick some way of doing it. But if nobody does that, then it just doesn't happen, and then all those opportunities are lost. George said he had business card holders on the top of the mixing console and on the mic stand, so they're really at the ready, there. And that's part of it. Like Mark said, scheduling is toughest. He has a calendar to keep track of all our shows, and when other bandmates are not available, so he can know ahead of time which dates they have available. And that's part of the managing thing, is you have to people's schedules, especially adults who have full-time jobs and have families and take vacations. And
well, you need a shared calendar, like you said, because it's like, hey, October 3rd just came available for this festival show, and then you look at the calendar real quick. It's like, oh, Steve's out that weekend, so I know right away I can't do it, right?
Right.
Or, hey, I'll just check the calendar. Everyone's got a green light. Let me get back to you, but it looks like we're good. Quickly text everybody, hey, this gig came in. No, nothing's on the calendar. I'm booking it.
Right. Julian said, we were wondering if we get another guitarist to improve, and we all decided that it's better to stay the way we are because of schedule management, personalities, etc., etc. So yeah, the more people you have in the band, the more scheduling issues you're going to have.
For sure.
Mark suggests Bookface, Messenger, group chat. I mean, you can do it on Facebook. There's a ton of ways. It's not even about the method. It's just about the intent, and somebody actually taking the step.
It's just about communicating, like you said, and for the greater good of the band, trying to move the ball forward, right? Because we can all show up and do the same thing. It's just like with anything, Steve. If you play your instrument and you never practice and you just gig on the weekends, right, or you gig once in a while, and you're you're proficient, but you're not getting any better, right? So you can kill it every time you go out to play, but you're just as good as you were 5 years ago.
Right.
You know, like you haven't advanced at all, or you've advanced a little bit, you know, like we talked about a couple episodes ago, that cumulative effect.
Yeah.
The more you keep pushing on something and the more you keep repetitively doing and get it ingrained as a habit and consistency to it, the results start to blossom and flourish, you know, way more than you would have ever imagined.
Yep,
But
absolutely.
a lot of people don't give it enough time to stick with it. You know, stick with something for
They
a
just,
month, right?
yeah.
30 days at least to see some kind of difference. And then you'd be amazed in 90 days what kind of difference you see, you know?
And they don't even think about it, really. But
Yeah.
Leo, another suggestion, have a list of fill-ins at the ready. And that's something I did when I was a band leader here in New Orleans. I had a band called St. Rock. I was the band leader, and I had a list of drummers, guitar players, singers, bass players even, keyboard players that I would go to. And I had to do that a lot. Almost every week I had somebody that wasn't going to make it, and I had to get a sub. And yeah, so you want to have that list. Deborah said some of the festivals book talent often 12 to 18 months in advance. Forward bookings mean you eat. Means you eat. Yeah.
Yes.
That means you're getting work if you
got gigs in the pipeline.
Book ahead of time. Right. So all that's food for thought, folks. If you're out there playing in bands, I think that's something that you want to think about, talk about with your band members. If you don't have somebody who's taking charge of your situation, consider it and consider, you know, who's the best candidate for that and what could be accomplished, you know. And again, the best leaders listen to the people who they're leading and, you know, take their suggestions and, you know, toss it around and say, like, what are the advantages of this? How achievable is it? You know, all those factors, consider them, but have somebody that's making decisions. All right, we're doing this. That's it.
Yeah, or if not, take the opportunity to at least communicate more amongst your bandmates, right? And try to get on the same page. And if you're not pushing the ball forward, think of ways that you can and try to collectively talk amongst yourselves on how to make that a reality.
Yes. Like if you don't want Steve in the band, be like, all right, get all together and be like, you know, Steve's trying to take over here. We got to get him out.
We're voting him out tonight. Thanks, Steve. It's been great. You're a great player and everything, but unfortunately, tonight's your last time playing with us.
That's right. He's off the island.
You're off the island. And you're like, yeah, but we're not even gigging tonight, right? Exactly. Thanks for your services are no longer required.
Thank you for your time. But we'll give you a good reference.
Godspeed and best of luck to you.
If you need any help with anything. All right, so 2 weeks from now, May 23rd, Tuesday, May 23rd at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, we will have episode number 200. It's going to be full of surprises, guests, retrospective, tequila shots, and
circus animals.
So we're going to have to talk to Ringling Brothers about that.
People.
See if we can get some animals. But please tune in for that. It's a big deal for us to do this 200 times. And we're really excited about it. So come on back 2 weeks from today, Tuesday, May 23rd at 8 o'clock Eastern Time p.m. Or you can always catch the replay on our YouTube channel. Make sure you check that out. The link is in the description. Check that out. Subscribe, hit the bell. Cover Band Central's on Facebook, on the page. Some of you watching from there. We have a Facebook group. Some of you watching from there. Make sure you join the group if not part of it. And there's the website, coverbandcentral.com. Sign up for a profile for you, your band, or both. It is free. And that'll do it for us. We'll see you next time for number 200, baby.